Welcome back to Mason-Dixon Acres. On today's episode, I'm going to be putting in some garage door headers. I already have this one started, have to finish it off with a couple more layers, and then I got to get onto my big doors. I got a 16-foot wide door, 9-foot wide door, and the one behind me is 8-foot wide. So I'll go through the materials I'm using and how I'm going to go about this solo. I think my brother actually will be joining me in a little bit to help with some basic manual labor tasks, but luckily we have the skid steer to do the heavy lifting. So the first thing to do is check the plans and see what size everything is. This header here is actually in a non-bearing wall, but it is still a double 2x12 for my 8x8 foot garage door. The tricky part here though is getting it furred out to the appropriate width. As you can see, we have a 5.5 inch wall here, and our double 2x12 is only going to be 3 inches wide if we left it at just 2. So here's my plan. I could not help to notice this as I was climbing that ladder. Does it not look like this board is just some creepy face sticking its tongue out at you? Because those were my thoughts. This is going to be a sandwich header, so I got a 2x12 on the outside. I'll be putting 2 inches of XPS foam in the middle, and then I have another 2x12 with a layer of 1/2 inch plywood laminated to it on the inside. That stack up will get me 5.5 inches, which is the thickness of my 2x6 wood frame wall. So let's get moving and get it installed. So I've already got this 2x12 nailed up here, and I used a fasten lock 3-inch screw to kind of pull it together, pull it tight. I'm just gonna tack this insulation here. Oh, well, I guess I can't tack 2-inch insulation with 2-inch nails. Does not work very well. Good thinking, Alex. All right, got the right nails. I ripped this insulation down to 11 1/8 inch, just a little bit shy of the 11 1/4 width of the 2x12. That gives me a little bit of play for the unevenness. Don't really need to put many nails in this because it's going to get sandwiched pretty good with the next layer. I'll be using 5-inch long Simpson HD screws. And those things are monsters. They just totally suck everything together, and we will be good to go. Oh my goodness gracious, are you kidding me? I knew that was gonna happen. I knew that was gonna happen. Today is just not my day. Not my day. Time to spend 20 minutes cleaning these up. After seeing some of the lumber that I've gotten recently, I'm in the habit of always checking the squareness on the ends of these things. Some are really bad. Mills need to get their act together. For example, you can see that end is not perfectly square. It's probably about a 1/16 out. Not terrible, but I'm gonna trim it flush. And this end's got a big old knot out of it, which I definitely want to cut off. I almost missed this, but you also really need to watch for the snipe from the planer. There is a good 1/8 inch gap there at the end of this board, and that would be all well and good, except this is exactly where this header actually sits on our jack studs. So that's going to be no good. The header would sit an 1/8 inch low if I would have left that as is. It's a big mama. 16 inches deep, 3-ply. Should I laminate these here or up on the wall? That is the golden question. Here we go. Thank goodness for wall braces. They're a little closer here. Look at that. Clamp for safety. Just gotta lock it together. To hold this header sandwich together, I'm going to be using these 5-inch Simpson SDWS lag screws. These things are beasts. I mean, if you look at these, they are just scary looking. Really coarse thread, self-drilling. So these should definitely get the job done. And as an added bonus, I can use them from the side as well to pull the header tight to the king stud. Get some nails in that thing too.
If you look closely, this turned out to be my biggest mistake of first floor framing. I accidentally cut the top plate on this wall one stud width too short and fastened that garage door jamb to it, which automatically makes the garage door jamb out of plumb. I didn't realize this till I was going around plumbing all the walls, but luckily I caught it before any sheeting went on. I had to take that whole top plate off, cut a new one to the right length, and refasten everything together.
I'm sure you didn't need my help to do that. You lifted that damn board by yourself?
Yeah. I mean, it's not that heavy.
There was some twist in the header, so I screwed that board to it, and Eric twisted it back while I fastened it in place.
Beautiful little fawn.
Oh, got it. You're high, right?
Mm-hmm. Where's your mom? Oh, taking a nap. Just hanging out in the grass.
Lost the audio on this clip, but I swear the fawn was just about to come over and eat out of my hand. I tried to be super careful when laminating these LVLs together that everything was nice and flush, but it wasn't careful enough, and you'll see why in just a bit. It's truly amazing how far cordless tools have come. I bought this DeWalt 60-volt framing saw specifically for framing this first floor, and it chews through these LVLs like nothing's there. It's just as powerful as any corded saw. I'm gonna guess this beam weighed about 600 pounds altogether.
All right, well, we got the headers up. This was a beast, this 3-ply LVL, but the skid steer made it easy. I have a 5-inch screw that pulled each wall tight up against the ends of each header, and the screws are just a game changer, honestly. It makes things so much easier. No chains or cable ties or anything like that to pull things together. I haven't plumbed this wall yet, so I kind of have left all the plumb braces off of it, except for one, but that will be a task for a different day. We are pivoting a bit now to our center wall. So we're now gonna get our interior wall framing underway. The first step there is marking out where our radiant tubes are so that when we drill for our concrete anchors on our sill plate, for all our walls really, we don't hit any. That will be the key. So let me show you how I did that. First thing we did was snap our chalk lines to basically represent the outside of the framing of this wall. I just measured from the front of the foundation 22 foot or so, basically got the dimensions from my plans. Now we need to check where our radiant tubes are. For this process, we did have some foresight before we poured the slab to have a tape measure out, and then took a bunch of pictures and video of where all the tubing was in relation to this tape measure, which was hooked on the outside of our foundation wall. So that is essentially what I've referenced now, and I've pulled the same tape measure across, looked at the video, and basically marked out the locations where each red radiant tubing is crossing our wall. We need anchor bolts every 4 foot in this wall, so it's not gonna be between every piece of tubing that we're drilling, but we definitely just wanna make sure that where we're drilling is not where a tube is.
I didn't have my hole saw kit for drilling where this pipe goes. I do not recommend doing this with a jigsaw and 2x material. The walls of your hole will not be straight. For the anchor bolts, I have simple 1/2 inch by 7 inch wedge anchors. Unfortunately, the next morning I realized our 16-foot LVL actually had to come down for some modification. LVLs aren't quite as perfect as the manufacturer bills them to be. It turned out that these three were not quite 16 inches, some were a little bit larger. And because my top plate was going to sit right on top of this, it would not sit flush when that would translate all the way up to my floor and roof. So I decided to take the time, take it down, and cut the end flush with my saw. Shane used the planer to get the middle board, which I couldn't reach with the depth of the saw. Second time's the charm. I think that's how the saying goes. I did eventually replace these 5-inch Simpson screws with 6-inch coming in from the other side once I had some sheeting on. This way the inspector could see how that header's fastened together. I put a few more 5-inch Simpson screws in the ends of each garage header as well. Overall, I was really happy with how it all turned out, which is important because once we get sheeting on, there's no going back. As always, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next installment of Framing. But until then, we will see you next time.